A retired secret agent takes on the challenge of dismantling a drug trafficking ring, but soon discovers that his new friends are caught up with dangerous local crime bosses. As the situation intensifies, he steps in to protect them from the menacing influence of the mafia. Get ready for a captivating story of retribution and bravery. Will he prove to be the ultimate protector? Stay tuned as the suspenseful narrative unfolds. The movie begins in Sicily, Italy. A man named Lorenzo Vitali, who is involved in crime, is driving with his son. They arrive at a winery and find lifeless bodies everywhere. Lorenzo tells his son to stay in the car, then goes inside and discovers his men brutally attacked. Despite being a tough crime boss, Lorenzo is disturbed by the gruesome scene. In the basement, he finds more bodies and his rival, Robert, holding a gun. Robert is upset because Lorenzo's men did not let him in, and now he wants Lorenzo to decide his fate in 9 seconds. When Lorenzo does not respond, Robert uses one of Lorenzo's men as a shield and shoots at him. Lorenzo crawls for safety, but Robert ends his life. After taking the key, Robert instructs the kid to stay put and leaves. As he turns around, he hears a gunshot, frightening the kid. In the next scene, a police car finds Robert unconscious on the roadside. The local officer takes him to a doctor named Enzo to avoid the hospital reporting the bullet wound. After an operation, Enzo wonders if Robert saved a good or bad man, but Robert is unsure. Enzo takes care of Robert in his own bed over the next few days. Robert, feeling a bit better, decides to take a walk with the help of a cane. Enzo, the doctor who took care of him, mentions that he has been out of it for 3 days and suggests a walk. Following the advice, Robert heads to the street, passing several shops. He stops at a cafe and neatly places tissues in front of him. A woman named Amina brings him coffee. The officer who saved him, Gio Bonucci, appears with his daughter Gabriella. Gio explains Robert's nasty fall, hands over car keys without looking inside, bids farewell, and leaves. The scene shifts to a CIA base, where a woman named Collins answers a call from Robert. He provides coordinates and identifies as a concerned citizen. Collins, cautious about revealing the CIA location, ends the call. Undeterred, Robert calls again, gives the location, and suggests sending a squad. He adds that their conversation is recorded and hangs up. Collins checks the satellite feed, calls in ops to investigate. Robert decides to make friends with the locals despite still feeling unwell. He sits on some stairs one night, recalling how he skillfully handled men at the winery, though he hardly recognizes himself. The next day, he enjoys lunch at a cafe, watching a man hand an envelope to bikers. Amina brings him coffee and introduces herself. Over the next few days, he befriends the locals, but he notices bikers collecting protection money from shops. One shop owner, Angelo, talks to Marco Corrent, the brother of the mafia leader, explaining slow business and lacking funds. Angelo receives a harsh beating. Robert witnesses this, and Marco demands double payment next week. Outside, Robert gives a stern look. In Naples, bikers move from street to street until they reach some apartments. Vincent, Marco's brother, holds a meeting with the property owners, expressing interest in buying the place. They say no to Vincent, and he simply leaves. Outside, he greets his brother. Suddenly, a man crashes through a window, showing you cannot refuse Vincent. He instructs his brother to increase the demand for money from the townspeople, hinting at big plans. The next day, Robert visits Angelo's shop for some fish for Enzo. They joke about his new hat. Angelo refuses to take money and says it is free. Things get serious. Robert's call to the CIA allows their teams to enter the winery. They find synthetic amphetamine pills, piles of cash, over $1 million, and a lot of weapons and drugs. Frank Conroy, the supervisor, calls it a significant bust, surprising them as it was not on their radar. Frank asks Collins to find out who made that call. Later, Enzo checks Robert's wound and says he is almost back to normal. Robert wonders why Enzo took care of him without involving the police. Enzo explains that when asked if he is good or bad, Robert said he does not know and only a good person would say that. Meanwhile, Vincent tells his brother about more work and reveals plans to bring high-quality casinos and resorts to Altamont. Back at Enzo's, Robert packs his bags to return to the States. As he leaves, he hears screams and sees Angelo's shop on fire. Enzo calms Angelo and his wife, while Robert notices Marco and his crew watching from a distance. The next day, Robert and the townspeople come together to help Angelo rebuild his shop. Gio at the station finds the vehicle responsible for the fire, initiating an investigation. That night, Amina suggests getting some food, and they enjoy a kebab together. Over time, Robert develops a soft spot for the town, enjoying its theater, especially the coffee, and bonding with the people. Collins tries to sneak a picture, and Robert suggests taking a better one. She approaches, and he thanks her for the tip. Collins is a bit snarky, and he responds with rhetorical remarks. She mentions dead bodies and questions if he is involved. He laughs, claiming to be just a bystander too old for harm. His charisma makes her giggle, and she suggests he stick around. Gio is picking up his daughter when he gets a call about her being held. Threatened to drop the investigation, he cannot find her and rushes home. Men have taken over his house, holding his family. They warn him to stop the investigation or his daughter will be in danger. He visits Enzo with a black eye and Robert learns about it. McCall starts training and Collins awaits him. She says he is no longer a person of interest, just an interesting person. She briefs him on Vincent and the Mafia, wondering why he called her. He mentions Italy having a secure port, not ideal for their operation. Later, Gio has an unexpected dinner with his family. Uninvited guests, led by Marco, join them. Marco asks Gio for favors and declares he will work for him. Robert observes Marco, eyeing him from a distance. He tells Marco to stop meddling in other people's business. Robert responds, saying it is just a coincidence he is still in Sicily and that Marco messed up. Marco and his men find it amusing an old man challenges them, but Robert means business. He distracts Marco, grabs his arm, and breaks his wrist. Marco's men are forced to stay put as Robert humiliates Marco in front of everyone. He makes other patrons leave and places Marco's gun on the table, making him walk away embarrassed. However, Marco is furious and orders his men, including the Viking, to prepare for another fire. He plans to kill everyone in the shop, starting with Robert. Out of nowhere, their van crashes, connecting one of his men to a wall. Robert deals with the Viking and takes care of Marco swiftly, walking away as if nothing happened. The next day, police are at the crime scene, happy to see Marco gone. Pills from the winery end up in Marco's van. Meanwhile, Collins gets a phone call from Frank informing her of a major terrorist attack in Rome. The drugs seem to have funded the attack. Collins questions the logic of bringing drugs through Italy's most secure port. She suggests Naples, a more vulnerable entry point, might be a lead. She promises to gather information to track down the drug wholesalers. Collins goes to the chief of police, asking to question anyone linked to the Camorra or Italian mafia. She shows him a file, and he allows her to interview everyone except one person. Ironically, that is the first person she chooses to talk to. Without offering deals, Collins persuades him to share details about the location of the wholesale supplier. The police storm the place, resulting in chaos and several fatalities. At Vincent's place, a sad gathering remembers his younger brother's life. The chief of police arrives, extending sympathies to Vincent. In a hushed tone, he informs Vincent of the CIA's presence, inquiring about mafia ties in the government. Advising Vincent to stop illegal activities, he hints that Collins is close to uncovering the Camorra's strategy. Refusing to work for Vincent, the chief gets enraged and Vincent retaliates by severing his hand. In another part of the city, Collins receives a call from Robert urgently revealing that the Camorra is orchestrating everything from bombings to drug operations. A bomb meant for her does not finish the job. Severely injured, she is taken to a nearby hospital, admitted to intensive care. Frank vows to get to the bottom of the mess. The scene shifts to Vincent arriving in the town where Robert is with Gio as a hostage. He demands everyone to come out and asks for his brother's killer. Robert reveals himself armed with guns but not loaded. Vincent can take what he wants from the people, but Robert suggests taking him as a prisoner without killing him in front of the good people. Vincent says, "This is the best place to teach everyone a lesson not to interfere with him again." Robert surrenders, raising his hands as Vincent prepares to shoot. Bang! Turns out it is Enzo firing. The villagers see Robert as their own, filming Vincent with their cameras. Killing Robert in front of so many phones would cause too much trouble for Vincent. He threatens to be back, and Robert says he will be waiting. The mafia speeds off in their cars. Later that evening, Vincent tells his crew to get ready for the next day. He plans to turn the town into a war scene. As time passes in a thunderstorm, Vincent sleeps in his bed and his men guard the house outside. One of Vincent's fancy cars starts beeping, and the guard goes to check. Everything seems normal, and he drops his gun, walking away. Robert grabs the man from behind and takes him out with the gate open. He enters the property and silently eliminates another guard. Inside, 3 men are playing cards when the lights go out. Robert uses 3 bullets to take out all 3 guards. Robert grabs a metal rod and takes out the man watching the cameras. As Vincent sleeps, he feels some water on his head. Turning around, he finds it is blood. The ceiling caves in and his man falls through it. Vincent grabs a gun, walks through the glass barefoot, and screams for his men's support. However, there is no one left to help him. He sprays his automatic around, walks into the next room, and is knocked out by Robert. Vincent wakes up tied with a metal rope. He starts frothing, and Robert informs him he has 6 minutes until the pills he gave him while he was knocked out take effect. Vincent is released and tries to escape, falling and vomiting continuously. Robert stands behind him, saying this is what he deserves for all the innocents he killed. He will suffer the same fate, even getting hit by a car. He keeps crawling on the ground, and Robert walks over him like he is a puppy. Humiliated and disgraced, he comes to a stop and takes his last breath. Once again, Robert walks away as if nothing happened. The city is in chaos as Camorra members are caught in coordinated raids. At the hospital, Robert visits Collins, who thanks him for saving her life. He places bags of cash on her bedside table and mentions Marco, a man who lost his pension in a cyber attack. Collins pieces together the puzzle. Robert traced the cyber attack to a winery in Sicily, dealt with Lorenzo's henchmen, including Lorenzo himself, secured the vault keys, and took the exact amount owed to Marco. When she asks about Marco's relationship with Robert, he reveals they had met only once upon her departure from Italy. Collins travels to Boston to deliver the money to Marco and his wife, who are overwhelmed with gratitude and on the verge of losing their home. Puzzled by Collins' generosity, they bid her farewell. As she leaves, Collins admits she too is curious about the depth of the connection. Back at the CIA, Collins receives an unexpected parcel, her mother's diary and a note from Robert. The diary unveils a shocking truth. Collins is the offspring of Brian and Susan Plummer. We see the festive streets of Altamont, where townsfolk jubilantly celebrate their football team's victory. Among the revelers, Robert blends in, immersing himself as one of the locals, and the movie ends here. That wraps up today's video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.